Energy is the invisible currency of life, the force that fuels every thought, every movement, every choice. Just like money, energy must be managed with wisdom, intention, and awareness. Too often, people move through their days leaking energy unconsciously, pouring it into arguments that do not matter, stressing over things they cannot control, or investing it in distractions that bring no lasting growth. To conserve energy is not about holding back or living with restriction. It is about living in alignment, becoming deliberate with where energy flows, and learning to use it in ways that multiply rather than diminish. Conservation begins with awareness. When you wake in the morning, the body is like a reservoir filled with fresh energy. What you choose to do with that energy determines the quality of your day and, in the long run, the quality of your life. If you spend it recklessly on scrolling endlessly, on complaining, on gossip, or on dwelling in fear, you find yourself exhausted before the day has even reached its peak. But if you direct it carefully into practices that nourish the body, into thoughts that strengthen the mind, and into actions that build clarity, energy not only lasts but expands. Conservation creates sustainability. It makes energy available for the moments when it is truly needed. The mind is one of the greatest consumers of energy. Every worry, every doubt, every overthinking loop acts like a drain on the reservoir. Many do not realize that thinking itself consumes energy, and most of the thoughts that arise are repetitive, unproductive, and heavy. To conserve energy in the mind, one must learn discipline. Discipline to recognize which thoughts are worth feeding and which should be allowed to pass. When attention is trained, when mindfulness is cultivated, the mental leaks begin to seal, and what once was wasted becomes available for clarity, creativity, and focus. Equally important is emotional energy. Emotions can lift us to great heights or weigh us down into deep exhaustion. Anger, jealousy, and resentment drain energy at a rapid pace, while gratitude, compassion, and joy circulate it in expansive ways. To conserve emotional energy does not mean suppressing feelings, it means transforming them. It means observing anger without letting it erupt into destruction, acknowledging sadness without allowing it to consume, and redirecting emotional energy into purposeful expression. In this way, energy is not lost but reshaped, not scattered but harnessed. The body is also a vessel that requires balance. A body deprived of rest, proper nourishment, or movement becomes a leaky container for energy. Sleep is not simply a passive act, it is the most essential conservation practice, where energy is restored and systems are recalibrated. Food, too, is not merely fuel for survival but a source of subtle energies that affect clarity, focus, and vitality. Movement disciplines such as martial arts, yoga, or qigong are not just physical exercises but methods to train the body to hold, circulate, and conserve energy. A balanced body becomes a fortress that guards against unnecessary loss. Relationships and environments play a profound role in energy conservation. Spending time with those who uplift and inspire generates a flow that strengthens. But surrounding oneself with negativity, constant conflict, or environments filled with chaos becomes a drain, regardless of how strong the inner self may be. Conserving energy requires discernment, knowing where to stay, when to walk away, and what spaces truly allow energy to flourish rather than dissolve. There is also a subtle layer of energy that is often overlooked: attention. Where attention goes, energy follows. Every notification, every distraction, every indulgence in triviality is an energetic transaction. Much of modern life is designed to capture attention, to siphon energy from the individual into systems that offer nothing of true value in return. To conserve energy is to take back control of attention, to invest it with care, to place it only on what aligns with growth, peace, and purpose. Energy conservation is not about rigidity or restraint, but about refinement. It is not about clinging tightly to what one has, but about recognizing how much is wasted in unconscious living. True conservation leads not to less life, but to more life. It creates a surplus that can be channeled into mastery, creativity, service, or silence. It allows energy to move upward into higher states of awareness, rather than outward into endless distraction. Every day is an opportunity to practice conservation. It begins with simple questions. Where is my energy going? Is this action strengthening me or draining me? Is this thought adding to my clarity or clouding it? Is this environment nourishing or depleting? By asking these questions consistently, awareness sharpens, choices refine, and conservation becomes natural. Slowly, energy that once escaped unnoticed begins to accumulate, and with it comes resilience, focus, and presence. When energy is conserved, one no longer lives in constant exhaustion or dependence on external stimulation. Instead, there is an inner reserve, a silent strength that sustains through challenges. In moments of crisis, it is the conserved energy that allows calmness to prevail. In moments of growth, it is the surplus that fuels expansion. And in the stillness of meditation, it is the quiet, undisturbed energy that opens the door to deeper understanding of self and life. In life, there is a profound difference between being everywhere and being truly present somewhere. Presence is not about the body merely existing in a place. It is about the energy, the awareness, and the intention you bring into a moment. When presence becomes selective, it shifts from a scattered flow of attention into a focused beam of power. Most people move through the world without consideration of where they give their presence, pouring it into situations, people, and environments that neither nurture growth nor reflect the values they claim to hold. This dispersal weakens the inner core, draining vitality until nothing remains for what truly matters. Selective presence is an art, one that requires observation and discipline. To practice it, one must first recognize that presence is not infinite. Every day, you have only a certain capacity of energy, attention, and focus. When you choose to be present in one place, you inevitably withdraw from another. This is neither good nor bad, but it does mean you are constantly deciding, whether consciously or unconsciously, where the essence of your being is invested. The mistake most often made is living as if presence is limitless, scattering it across distractions, superficial connections, and empty pursuits. When one becomes more selective, the noise of life begins to fade. Conversations that once demanded attention lose their grip. Activities that held no meaning fall away, and individuals who seek only to consume your energy find themselves met with silence instead of constant engagement. This is not withdrawal, it is refinement. To be selectively present is not to isolate, but to choose wisely where you place your attention, because your attention is life itself. Where awareness goes, energy flows, and where energy flows, life grows. Consider how a candle burns. Its flame can light a dark room, but if you divide the flame into many small sparks, each becomes too weak to give warmth or illumination. Your presence operates in the same way. Scattered across too many directions, it loses potency. Gathered and focused, it becomes a force that transforms everything it touches. Selective presence is the practice of keeping your flame steady, allowing it to shine brightly in chosen spaces rather than dimming it through constant division. The difficulty arises in the demand of the world. Modern life insists that attention must always be divided. Notifications, constant connectivity, endless invitations to engage. They attempt to convince you that to be everywhere is to be alive. But in truth, being everywhere often means being nowhere fully. The practice of selective presence is therefore an act of resistance, a conscious decision to step out of the storm of endless demands and instead direct energy toward what cultivates depth and meaning. When presence is selective, relationships change. Some connections grow stronger because they are infused with undivided attention. Others naturally fade because they were sustained only by obligation or habitual response. In this process, clarity emerges. You begin to see who values the weight of your presence and who only seeks to drain it. This is not about judgment, but about awareness. When your presence is intentional, you stop watering weeds and start nurturing roots that grow into lasting trees. Selective presence also sharpens the mind. When you give attention to fewer things, each chosen focus deepens. Reading a book with full awareness transforms the experience. Engaging in a conversation without distraction turns dialogue into connection. Training the body with no divided thoughts strengthens both muscles and spirit. In all things, the quality of presence determines the quality of experience. Selective presence, therefore, is not simply about refusing some engagements. It is about elevating the ones you choose to embrace. This practice is not without its challenges. To withhold presence from certain situations may be misunderstood. People may interpret it as distance, coldness, or rejection. Yet, those who cultivate inner discipline know that selective presence is not absence, it is wisdom. It is not about turning away from life, but about stepping into it with greater clarity. You cannot give your full presence to everything, so you must choose carefully. The discipline lies in being willing to endure the discomfort of saying no in order to preserve the integrity of a more powerful yes. Selective presence is also connected to self-respect. When you give your awareness to everything indiscriminately, you unconsciously declare that your time and energy hold little value. But when you choose carefully where to direct them, you affirm the worth of your inner resources. This silent declaration changes the way others interact with you. People begin to sense that your presence is not to be taken lightly, that when you are present, you are truly there, and when you are absent, it is because your energy is being invested with purpose. The practice expands beyond human interaction into how you meet yourself. Selective presence means not only being mindful of external engagements, but also of internal ones. Thoughts compete for attention just as much as people do. Some thoughts are worthy of deep contemplation. Others are nothing more than echoes of fear, habit, or conditioning. To be selectively present with your inner world is to notice which thoughts strengthen you and which drain you. It is to refuse to pour awareness into mental patterns that bring no growth, no insight, and no peace. Through this inner discipline, presence evolves into power. No longer wasted on distraction, it gathers like a reservoir ready to be directed with intention. A person who has mastered selective presence does not appear hurried, scattered, or restless. Instead, they radiate calm intensity because wherever they are fully there. And when they choose not to be somewhere, their absence is not emptiness, but a declaration that energy is being reserved for what is truly essential. Inner fulfillment is not something that can be purchased, borrowed, or stolen. It is not hidden in external achievements, nor is it found in the possessions one gathers throughout life. Inner fulfillment is an experience, a deep state of being that arises when the heart and mind are in alignment with truth. Many people confuse satisfaction with fulfillment. Satisfaction is temporary. It fades when circumstances change. Fulfillment, however, remains because it is rooted within and does not depend on external conditions. To understand inner fulfillment, one must first look at the nature of desire. Desire is endless. When one goal is reached, the mind immediately projects another and then another. This cycle of reaching, grasping, and chasing can never provide lasting peace. The moment one object of desire is acquired, the joy is fleeting, and soon the mind shifts to the next thing. Inner fulfillment arises only when this cycle is seen for what it is, an endless loop that cannot complete itself. To step out of this loop is to realize that peace cannot be imported from outside. It must be cultivated from within. The path to fulfillment begins with self-awareness. Without awareness, the mind is restless, constantly comparing, measuring, and judging. It is pulled into the stories of others, chasing after illusions of success or happiness. Self-awareness allows one to notice these movements of the mind and to gradually detach from them. In awareness, a space opens where one can see clearly the opinions of others, the shifting of circumstances, the rise and fall of fortune. None of these can provide stability to the spirit. Fulfillment arises when one is no longer enslaved by these fluctuations. Inner fulfillment also grows through simplicity. Complexity breeds confusion, while simplicity brings clarity. Many people complicate their lives with unnecessary attachments and endless pursuits, believing that adding more will create a sense of completion. In truth, the opposite is often the case. The more one adds, the more fragmented the inner space becomes. By simplifying life, by focusing on what is essential, the mind becomes lighter and the heart freer. Simplicity is not deprivation, it is refinement. It is cutting away what is inessential so that the essence of life may be experienced. Another aspect of inner fulfillment lies in acceptance. Many suffer because they resist the present moment, wishing it were different, wishing life would unfold according to their personal expectations. But resistance only deepens suffering. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It means seeing reality as it is without distortion. When the mind stops fighting against what is, a deeper peace emerges. Fulfillment flows when one accepts the moment fully, for it is in that acceptance that energy is no longer wasted on resistance, but instead directed toward growth and understanding. Gratitude is also a doorway to fulfillment. A heart that is grateful does not wait for perfection to arrive in life before it feels joy. Gratitude allows one to see beauty in what already exists. The simplest breath, the warmth of sunlight, the presence of stillness, these become treasures to a grateful heart. Gratitude is not about forcing positivity, but about recognizing that life, even with its imperfections, holds countless moments of grace. When one cultivates gratitude, fulfillment naturally arises, because the heart learns to dwell not on what is missing, but on what is present. Discipline of the mind and body plays an important role in the journey to fulfillment. Without discipline, the mind becomes scattered, pulled by impulses and desires that lead nowhere. Discipline is the art of focusing energy, of guiding thoughts, and of training the body to support the mind rather than weaken it. Through discipline, the restless nature of the mind is calmed and deeper layers of awareness are accessed. Fulfillment is not the result of chaos but of alignment, and alignment requires discipline. Silence is another profound teacher of fulfillment. In silence, one hears the deeper voice within, a voice often drowned out by the noise of the world. This silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is a stillness of the mind. When thoughts settle and the constant inner chatter fades, a vastness opens inside. In this vastness, fulfillment is experienced as something natural, something that does not need to be constructed. Silence reveals that fulfillment was never absent. It was simply covered by the noise of endless thinking. Compassion, too, deepens fulfillment. When one turns inward only for personal gain, fulfillment slips away. But when compassion arises, when one's energy extends to others without expectation, there is a sense of expansion within. Helping, serving, and uplifting others without attachment to reward creates a profound sense of connection. This connection feeds the soul, reminding it that fulfillment is not isolation but unity, not selfish gain but shared growth. Compassion opens the heart, and through that opening, fulfillment flows. Ultimately, inner fulfillment is about alignment, alignment between thought, word, and action, alignment between the inner world and the way one moves in the outer world. When there is contradiction, when the mind says one thing, the heart feels another, and the actions express something different altogether, the result is fragmentation and inner conflict. Fulfillment arises when this fragmentation dissolves and integrity is lived fully. Integrity brings a deep calmness, for nothing is hidden and nothing is divided. Inner fulfillment is therefore not a destination, but a state of being cultivated through awareness, simplicity, acceptance, gratitude, discipline, silence, compassion, and integrity. It is not an achievement to be reached someday, but an unfolding that happens here and now when the conditions of clarity and openness are present. The world may continue to change, circumstances may continue to rise and fall, but inner fulfillment remains untouched, like the calm depths beneath the waves of the ocean, steady and unmoved even as the surface is disturbed. In life, every individual carries within them a space that cannot be seen but is always felt. It is the circle of energy, values, and presence. This circle is not drawn on the ground, but around the heart, the mind, and the spirit. It is the space in which one allows people, ideas, and influences to enter. To guard this circle is to understand that not everyone is meant to sit close to the fire of your being. The strength of a person is not only measured by how far they can go, but also by how well they can protect what is near. Guarding the circle means first becoming aware of what the circle truly is. It is formed by the quality of thoughts one cultivates, by the habits one practices, and by the people one surrounds themselves with. If the circle is filled with chaos, it will weaken. If the circle is filled with clarity, it will strengthen. Just as a fortress is only as safe as the walls that protect it, a life is only as stable as the boundaries that define it. Those who do not know where their circle begins or ends live in confusion. They cannot distinguish between what belongs to them and what belongs to others, between what strengthens them and what drains them. When one guards their circle, they understand that not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every word deserves response. Not every connection deserves closeness. There are forces that uplift and forces that consume. There are presences that nurture and presences that diminish. To guard the circle is to sharpen the ability to recognize which is which. This is not about rejection, but about discernment. It is about realizing that to keep something sacred, it must not be left open to everything that knocks at its door. Consider the circle as a flame. If too much wind enters, the flame will flicker until it extinguishes. If guarded carefully, the flame grows steady and strong. The flame does not ask every breeze to come closer. It does not attempt to warm every corner of the world. It remains centered, burning with intensity, and those who respect its warmth may draw near. Guarding the circle means protecting this flame so that it does not collapse under the weight of unwanted storms. The circle is also a reflection of self-respect. Those who respect themselves cannot allow careless words, destructive behaviors, or draining influences to dwell too long in their space. To guard the circle is to make choices with courage. Sometimes it means walking away. Sometimes it means saying no. Sometimes it means standing in silence while the world demands noise. And sometimes it means letting go of what once seemed necessary but now only erodes the inner ground. Guarding the circle requires strength but also patience. There is wisdom in understanding that energy flows in both directions. What enters the circle affects the one within, and what emerges from the one within shapes the circle itself. If negativity is allowed inside, it will grow until it overflows. If clarity, discipline, and kindness are cultivated, they radiate outward, strengthening the boundaries. The one who fails to guard their circle often wonders why peace feels distant. But peace does not vanish. It is simply scattered by what is allowed to intrude. Guarding the circle is not an act of isolation. It is not about rejecting the world, but about engaging with it wisely. The circle does not close to everything, it opens selectively. It chooses depth over shallowness, sincerity over pretense, nourishment over depletion. Just as a gardener tends the soil and removes weeds so the plants may thrive, one must tend the circle and remove what poisons growth. Without this care, the garden becomes wild, overrun, and unrecognizable. With this care, the garden flourishes. When the circle is guarded, life begins to align. Focus sharpens and distractions fade. The mind becomes less restless, the heart less burdened. There is strength in knowing that the circle is intact, that one's energy is not leaking away into places where it does not belong. In this guarding, freedom is found. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of presence. The ability to stand firmly in one's space without being pulled apart by the demands of others. Guarding the circle also means recognizing the rare value of those who honor it. Some people will respect the boundary, enter with care, and leave it better than they found it. Others will attempt to cross it without regard, leaving behind disruption and emptiness. The task is to learn the difference. To keep close only those who bring clarity, not confusion. To keep near only those who reflect strength, not weakness. And to do this without resentment, but with understanding that not every soul is meant to walk in the same circle. The circle is both shield and mirror. Shield because it protects against what does not belong. Mirror because it reflects what is cultivated inside. Guarding it requires discipline, but discipline is the path to peace. A life lived without guarding the circle is a life left vulnerable to every distraction, every influence, every storm. But a life lived with awareness of the circle is a life lived with strength, clarity, and direction. To guard the circle is to guard the essence of life itself. The fire that burns quietly but powerfully within, the unseen but ever-present boundary that determines whether energy is scattered or preserved, whether the inner world thrives or collapses, whether the self remains whole or becomes divided or growth is not an accident. It is not something that simply arrives one day at your doorstep. It is a process that asks for attention, intention, and continuous effort. To focus on growth means to direct your awareness toward expansion rather than limitation, toward learning rather than avoidance, toward strength rather than weakness. It is the art of stepping beyond the familiar boundaries of your comfort zone and discovering that life has more to offer than what you currently hold. Focusing on growth requires you to look at yourself honestly and to embrace both the clarity and discomfort that come with change. When the mind remains fixed on the past or obsessed with certainty, growth becomes nearly impossible. A rigid tree eventually breaks in a storm, while the one that bends adapts and survives. In the same way, the person who is unwilling to change, who clings to old patterns and resists new challenges, remains trapped in a cycle of repetition. To focus on growth is to remain open, flexible, and willing to unlearn. It is to ask yourself again and again, what can I learn from this moment? What is life trying to teach me through this situation? And more importantly, how can I become someone greater than I was yesterday? The focus must shift from fear to possibility. Fear narrows vision, it creates hesitation and avoidance. Growth, on the other hand, expands vision, it inspires exploration and courage. When you choose growth, you stop asking what could go wrong and begin asking what you can gain. You recognize that setbacks are not punishments but invitations to sharpen your character. Every failure becomes a lesson. Every challenge becomes a stepping stone. Every uncomfortable situation becomes an opportunity to increase resilience. The one who focuses on growth learns to see life not as a series of problems, but as a training ground for strength and wisdom. Growth is not about comparing yourself to others. Comparison leads to envy and self-doubt. Growth is about measuring your own progress, however small, against your previous self. Each step matters. Each day that you choose discipline over distraction, you plant seeds that will one day grow into trees of confidence and mastery. The focus on growth is less about speed and more about consistency. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It requires time, nourishment, and patience. In the same way, your growth requires daily practice, constant attention, and faith that the process is shaping you even when you cannot yet see the results. There is a silence in growth, a quiet transformation that does not announce itself with noise or spectacle. Often, when you are growing, others may not notice. The change is internal first, within your thoughts, your perspectives, your emotional responses. It is only later that the outer results begin to appear. If you are too attached to instant recognition, you may abandon the process too early. Focus on growth demands humility. It asks that you keep walking even when no one applauds. It asks that you continue watering your seeds even when the soil seems barren. Growth belongs to the patient, the persistent, and the faithful. Distractions are the greatest threat to growth. Modern life is filled with endless noise, temptations, and diversions. To focus on growth is to make conscious choices about where your energy flows. You cannot grow when your attention is scattered in every direction. Concentration is power. To sit with your goals, to nurture them daily, to give them the energy of your consistent action, that is the way of growth. The mind must be trained to focus on what truly matters. Without focus, energy leaks away into trivial pursuits. With focus, even small efforts accumulate into extraordinary results. Growth is also about acceptance. Not everything will unfold according to your plan. Sometimes growth requires letting go of control, surrendering to the uncertainty, and trusting that life's timing is wiser than your impatience. The storms that come may not be what you wished for, but they shape you into who you need to become. Every difficulty becomes a mirror, reflecting the areas where you must expand. Focusing on growth means embracing this reality instead of fighting it. The soil of growth is often mixed with struggle, but it is this very struggle that strengthens the roots. The body grows through exercise, challenge, and resistance. The mind grows through learning, questioning, and reflection. The spirit grows through silence, humility, and surrender. Growth is not one-dimensional, it is a harmony of these aspects. To truly focus on growth, you must nourish all three. A strong body without wisdom is incomplete. A sharp mind without humility becomes destructive. A free spirit without discipline drifts aimlessly. Growth asks for balance, a steady integration of body, mind, and spirit. To focus on growth is to live with awareness that every moment can serve your expansion. A conversation, a setback, a quiet morning, even pain, all of these are teachers. Life becomes a constant classroom, and you are both the student and the evolving lesson. There is no final point where growth ends. As long as there is breath, there is space to rise, to expand, to deepen. To focus on growth is not to reach perfection, but to embrace progress as the very path of living. In life, what is scarce often holds a power that abundance cannot replicate. The human mind has always been drawn to the rare, to the uncommon, to that which is not easily found or possessed. From precious stones buried deep within the earth to fleeting moments of silence in a noisy world, rarity captivates attention because it is not ordinary. It creates desire, reverence, and careful consideration. When something is rare, it is not wasted, it is not overlooked, and it is not taken for granted. Value emerges not only from the essence of something, but from its availability. A resource that is abundant may be necessary, but it rarely commands the same respect as the one that is scarce. Water is abundant in some places, yet when drought strikes, every drop is treated as sacred. Air is taken for granted until one cannot breathe freely. Rarity awakens an awareness that abundance often dulls. It forces attention, invites patience, and demands responsibility. In the realm of human qualities, rarity plays the same role. Honesty in a world of deceit, patience in a culture of speed, kindness in an atmosphere of indifference. These traits stand out precisely because they are uncommon. Their scarcity magnifies their worth. People instinctively notice when they encounter someone who embodies rare virtues, for such presence disrupts the ordinary rhythm. It is no longer noise among noise, but silence cutting through the noise. That which is rare cannot help but be recognized, even if subtly, because it carries a frequency different from what most are accustomed to. Rarity also builds value through limitation. When one knows that something cannot be infinitely repeated, the encounter with it becomes meaningful. A sunrise is not rare. Yet each sunrise is rare in its singularity. It will never return in the same way again. The recognition of impermanence adds a layer of rarity even to what seems common. Life itself is valuable because it is limited. If existence stretched without end, moments would blur, experiences would lose sharpness, and choices would lose weight. Mortality, the ultimate form of rarity, gives urgency and intensity to the way we live. Discipline, too, gains its value from rarity. Many people want to achieve, but few are willing to practice consistently. The ability to remain steadfast when most abandon their efforts becomes the very reason for excellence. Masters of any art or discipline are not valuable simply because of talent, but because of the rarity of their dedication. While many begin, few continue. While many dream, few act. While many desire, few persist. The rarity of perseverance makes achievement not just respected, but revered. In silence, rarity is even more evident. Silence has become precious because the world overflows with noise. Moments of inner stillness, when found, are treasured because they are rare. This rarity gives silence its healing power. If silence were constant, its effect would not be felt as deeply. It is precisely because silence is hidden within layers of distraction that finding it feels like uncovering treasure. The rarer the silence, the greater the peace it brings when it is encountered. Relationships also demonstrate this principle. When loyalty becomes rare, it becomes priceless. When trust is scarce, it becomes the most guarded treasure. When true understanding is seldom experienced, it becomes cherished beyond material wealth. Human connection is not valuable because it exists, but because genuine, deep connection is rare in a world where superficial bonds are plentiful. Rarity forces one to protect what is valuable, to invest time and energy into preserving it. Even in the natural world, rarity is nature's way of creating significance. A rare flower blooming once a year carries more awe than a flower seen daily. A rare celestial event draws the eyes of the world to the sky, uniting strangers in shared wonder. Nature teaches that rarity does not diminish importance, it amplifies it. The fewer the encounters, the greater the reverence for the encounter itself. Rarity also serves as a teacher of restraint. When something is scarce, one must learn not to waste it. This applies not only to resources but to time, attention, and energy. Time once spent cannot be reclaimed, which is why the awareness of its rarity sharpens focus. Those who understand the scarcity of time approach life differently. They weigh choices, they value presence, they resist distractions, for they know that what is rare cannot be replaced. The paradox of rarity is that while it increases value, it also creates responsibility. To possess something rare is to bear the duty of care. To waste what is rare is not simply loss, but ignorance. Those who hold rare wisdom, rare skills, or rare opportunities must understand that these gifts are not casual. Their rarity is what makes them a responsibility. Power, when rare, is delicate. Knowledge, when rare, must be shared wisely. Opportunity, when rare, must not be squandered. Rarity demands awareness. It asks the mind to slow down, to notice, to appreciate. In a culture of abundance, where much is taken for granted, the recognition of rarity becomes a kind of awakening. It shifts perception from consumption to gratitude, from expectation to humility. The rare is not approached with greed, but with reverence. It reminds the individual that not everything is replaceable, not everything is repeatable, and not everything is guaranteed. To build value, rarity does not need to announce itself. It simply exists, quietly, beyond the reach of commonness. Its presence is felt, its absence noticed, its worth undeniable. The world often chases abundance, yet it bows before rarity. What is rare becomes the measure by which value is defined. In life, it is not always what is most available that shapes us, but what is least available that transforms us.